Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to our podcast. My name is James, and I'm happy to be here with you today. We have a very interesting topic to talk about: political influence. This means how politics affects people, decisions, and even our daily lives. Politics is not just about leaders and laws. It is also about how people think, what they believe, and how they make choices. Sometimes, political influence is clear, like when governments make rules. Other times, it is hidden, like when the media or famous people change the way we think about something.
Hi everyone, I'm Sophia, and I'm excited to discuss this important topic with you. Political influence is everywhere, even if we don't notice it. It can come from newspapers, television, social media, or even from our friends and family. Sometimes, leaders use political influence to make people agree with their ideas. Other times, people use it to demand changes and make their voices heard. Political influence can be good or bad. It depends on how it is used. In this podcast, we will explore how it works and why it matters.
Political influence is not always easy to see. Sometimes it works in small ways, like when a leader gives a speech that changes how people feel about a problem. Other times, it is big, like when a government makes a new law that affects everyone. People with power, like politicians and business leaders, often use political influence to get support. But it's not just them. Ordinary people can also have influence. When people come together to share ideas, they can make a big difference in society.
Yes, James, that's true. Political influence can also come from the media. The news, TV shows, and even social media can shape our opinions. When we see something on the news, we might believe it's important. But sometimes, the media can be biased. This means they show only one side of the story. That's why it's important to think carefully and not believe everything we see or hear. People need to ask questions and look at different sources to understand what's really happening.
That's a great point, Sophia. Another way political influence works is through education. Schools and teachers help people understand history, government, and important issues. When people learn more, they can make better decisions. Education helps people know their rights and responsibilities. If people understand politics, they can vote wisely and choose leaders who will do the best for their country.
Exactly, James, and political influence is also seen in protests and movements. When people want change, they gather together, march, and speak out. This has happened many times in history. People have fought for freedom, equality, and justice. Their voices have made lives change and improved people's lives. Political influence is not just about leaders, it's also about the power of the people.
Political influence is also connected to leadership. A strong leader can inspire people to believe in a vision and work towards it. But not all leaders use their influence in a good way. Some leaders try to control information or make people believe things that are not true. This is why it is important for people to think critically. When leaders use their influence in a fair and honest way, they can help a country grow and improve. But if they use it for personal gain, it can harm society.
That's very true. James, people should always pay attention to how leaders use their power. One way leaders gain influence is through speeches. When a leader speaks with confidence and strong words, people listen. They may feel hopeful or motivated, but sometimes leaders say things to make people afraid or angry. This can cause division in society. That's why it's important to listen carefully and ask, is this leader telling the truth? Are they helping people or just trying to gain more power?
Another way leaders influence people is through promises. Before elections, politicians often promise to make life better. They might say they will create more jobs, improve schools, or lower taxes. Some leaders keep their promises, but others do not. People should remember to check if a leader has done what they said they would do. If a leader breaks too many promises, they may not be trustworthy. Paying attention to actions, not just words, is very important in politics.
Yes, James, and that's why people should use their own voices too. Citizens have the power to ask questions and demand better leadership. They can vote, join discussions, and even write to leaders about issues that matter to them. When people stay informed and active, they help make their country stronger. Political influence is not just for leaders, it belongs to everyone who wants to see positive change.
Political influence is not only about leaders and governments. Big companies and businesses also have a lot of influence in politics. They can support leaders or laws that help them make more money. Sometimes they donate money to political campaigns to get special favors. This is why people need to watch how businesses and politics connect. If companies have too much power, they can change rules in ways that only help them, not the people. A fair system should focus on what is best for everyone, not just for a few powerful companies.
That's right, James. Businesses can shape political decisions in many ways. They may create jobs and help the economy, which is good. But some companies use their money to push for laws that benefit them while ignoring the needs of workers or the environment. For example, a company might not want strict pollution laws because it costs them money. This is why governments need to balance business interests with the needs of the people. Good leadership should make sure that businesses follow fair rules.
Another big part of political influence is lobbying. Lobbying is when groups try to convince leaders to make decisions in their favor. Some lobbyists work for good causes, like protecting nature or human rights. But others work for businesses that want to make more money, even if it hurts people. Lobbying can be useful, but it can also be unfair if only rich and powerful people get to influence decisions. That's why people must know what is happening in politics and speak up when something is not fair.
Exactly, James. The more people understand about lobbying and business influence, the better they can make smart choices. People should always ask, who is supporting this law? Who benefits from this decision? When people ask these questions, they become more aware of how political influence works. In the end, a strong society is one where citizens are informed and involved, not just politicians and businesses.
Political influence is also seen in the way people communicate. The way information is shared can shape opinions and decisions. One of the biggest ways this happens is through social media. Today, millions of people use platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get news and discuss politics. This can be a good thing because it allows people to share ideas quickly. But it can also be dangerous because false information spreads easily. People must be careful about what they believe and always check if news is true before sharing it.
That's a great point, James. Social media can give power to the people, but it can also be used to manipulate them. Sometimes, politicians or groups create fake news to change public opinion. They might spread lies about an opponent or make a problem seem bigger than it really is. This kind of influence can cause confusion and fear. That's why it is important to think critically. People should ask, who wrote this? Why are they saying this? Is it true? Thinking carefully helps people avoid being tricked.
Yes, Sophia. Another way political influence works through communication is in advertising. During elections, political ads are everywhere on TV, online, and even in the streets. These ads try to make people feel a certain way about a candidate or an issue. Some ads focus on positive messages, but others try to make opponents look bad. While political ads can give useful information, they can also be misleading. People should not trust an ad right away, but should do their own research before making decisions.
That's true, James. And another thing to remember is that different media sources can have different opinions. Some news channels or newspapers support one political side, while others support the other side. This is called media bias. It means that the way news is presented can change depending on who is reporting it. That's why people should not rely on only one news source. Reading different opinions and checking facts helps people see the full picture and make better choices.
Political influence is also found in education. Schools and teachers play a big role in shaping how people think about their country, history, and government. When people learn about their rights and responsibilities, they become better citizens, but sometimes education can be used to control what people believe. In some countries, governments only teach one side of history or leave out important facts. This can make people believe things that may not be true. That's why education should always be fair and based on facts.
That's very true, James. Education should help people think for themselves, not just follow what they are told. When students learn to ask questions and analyze information, they become more independent. This is important in politics because it helps people make their own decisions. If schools only teach what the government wants, students may not learn to question leaders or policies. A good education system encourages debate and allows people to hear different opinions.
Yes, Sophia, another important part of education is learning about voting and democracy. In many places, young people are not taught how elections work or why their vote matters. If people don't understand the system, they may not participate. This can give more power to a small group of people while others remain silent. A strong democracy needs educated voters who know their rights and responsibilities. Schools should teach students how to research candidates and understand political issues.
Exactly, James. And education doesn't stop after school. People should always keep learning about politics, history, and society. Reading books, watching debates, and talking to others can help people stay informed. The more people know, the less they can be controlled by political influence. A society with educated citizens is stronger because people can think for themselves and make choices that help everyone, not just a few powerful individuals.
Political influence is also connected to culture. The movies we watch, the music we listen to, and the books we read can all shape how we think about politics. Sometimes, filmmakers and musicians use their work to share messages about freedom, justice, or change. This can inspire people to take action, but culture can also be used to spread certain political ideas in a way that people don't always notice. That's why it's important to ask, what is this movie or song really saying?
That's a great point, James. Many times, movies and TV shows show politicians as heroes or villains. This can change how people feel about real political leaders. If the media always shows one group as good and another as bad, people may believe it without thinking. The same happens with history books. Some books tell only one side of a story, making one country or leader look better than they really were. People should always try to learn from different sources to get the full truth.
Yes, Sophia, another way political influence appears in culture is through celebrities. Many famous actors, singers, and athletes share their opinions about politics. Some use their influence to talk about important issues like climate change, human rights, or voting. This can be a good thing because they help people pay attention to big problems. But sometimes, celebrities support politicians just because they are friends or because it helps their career. People should listen to ideas, not just follow someone because they are famous.
Exactly, James. And we also see political influence in sports. Some governments use sports to show their power, like when they host big events such as the Olympics or the World Cup. Athletes, too, have used sports to protest unfair treatment or to support good causes. Sports bring people together, but they can also be used to spread political messages. That's why it's important to understand how politics and culture connect because influence is everywhere, even in the things we enjoy.
Political influence is also seen in the economy. The government makes decisions that affect jobs, salaries, and the prices of things we buy. For example, when a government raises taxes, businesses and workers feel the impact. Sometimes, leaders use economic policies to gain support. They might lower taxes before an election to make people happy. But after they win, they may raise them again. This is why people need to pay attention to how the economy is managed and understand the reasons behind government decisions.
That's a good point, James. The economy and politics are very connected. Governments also decide how much money to spend on things like schools, hospitals, and roads. If a government spends too much, a country can go into debt, which means borrowing money. But if they spend too little, people might not get the services they need. Some leaders use economic policies to help their supporters while ignoring others. That's why it's important to ask, who benefits from this decision? Is it fair for everyone?
Yes, Sophia. Another way political influence affects the economy is through trade. Countries buy and sell goods from each other, and governments make trade agreements to control this. Sometimes leaders create rules to protect local businesses, but this can also make prices higher. Other times, leaders remove trade restrictions, which makes goods cheaper but can hurt local industries. People should understand how these decisions impact their daily lives, from the price of food to the availability of jobs.
Exactly, James. And businesses also have power in the economy. Large companies sometimes work closely with politicians to create policies that benefit them. This can be good if it creates jobs and growth. But it can be bad if businesses avoid taxes or ignore workers' rights. The economy is not just about money, it's about people's lives. When citizens understand economic policies, they can make better choices and hold leaders accountable for their decisions.
Political influence also affects international relations. Countries work together in many ways, such as trade, security, and solving global problems. Some countries have strong political influence over others. They use diplomacy, which means talking and making agreements to build relationships. But sometimes, powerful countries try to control smaller ones by giving or withholding financial help. This can create problems because smaller countries may feel forced to follow decisions that are not best for their people. Understanding these global relationships is important for everyone.
That's a great point, James. Another way political influence works internationally is through organizations like the United Nations. These groups bring countries together to discuss important issues like peace, climate change, and human rights. They try to make sure that all countries have a voice, not just the powerful ones. However, sometimes bigger countries still have more control because they have more money or military strength. This can make it hard to create fair solutions for everyone.
Yes, Sophia, political influence is also seen in international conflicts. When countries disagree, they may try to solve problems through peaceful talks, but sometimes they use threats or even war. Governments also use the media to shape how people see these conflicts. They may make their country look like the hero and the other country like the enemy. That's why it's important to look at different sources of news and understand the real reasons behind global issues.
Exactly, James. And political influence in international relations also affects everyday people. Immigration policies, for example, decide who can move to a new country for work or safety. Trade agreements decide what goods are available and how expensive they are. Even global health decisions, like during a pandemic, are influenced by politics. The world is connected, and political influence shapes how countries cooperate and how people's lives change because of it.
That's so true, Sophia. Political influence affects almost every part of our lives, even if we don't always notice it. The way countries interact, the decisions they make, and the policies they create all have an impact. That's why it's important to stay informed and understand how these global relationships work.
Absolutely, James. Being aware of political influence helps people make better decisions, whether it's about voting, supporting policies, or simply understanding world events. When we take the time to learn and think critically, we can see things more clearly and not just believe everything we hear.
That's right, Sophia. The world is complex and international relations are always changing. But by staying informed and open-minded, we can better understand how politics shape our lives. It's not just about governments, it's about people, choices, and the future we all share.
Exactly, James. Talking about these topics helps us see different perspectives and realize how connected we all are. The more we learn, the more we can contribute to a fairer and better world. Thanks for this great discussion.